Welcome again, everyone, to another episode of There's Just Something About Kansas City. And this young lady who's sitting across from me, Kate McLiney, is an influencer in Kansas City. But more than that, she has done so much for this city with her own influence blog and everything you do, all your videos, all the stuff. It's just fascinating. And I know my wife, Sarah, she is the one that set this whole thing up about There's Just Something About Kansas City. She said, Frank, you have to get some young people in here. I'm going, you know what? I think you're right. I really do. So we reached out to her daughters, the McInerney girls, and you went to school at Sion with all the McInerney girls. And I guess that's how we sort of got this. Here you are.
Yes, and Kansas City has that small town feel sometimes where everybody knows the same people and you end up making connections you never would have expected. So I'm so happy to hear from them.
Okay, so you go to Sion, and then you go to the University of Arkansas.
Yep.
Tell me what that experience was like for you down there.
I was so unsure. I thought I wanted to go so far from Kansas City, which at that time, I graduated in 2011 from high school. And at that time, Kansas City, it may have been my age too, but it just wasn't what it is now. So I wanted to go as far as possible. So I think I applied to 12 schools, and none of them were reach schools at all. They were like state schools across the country. So unfortunately, I got into all 12, which made the decision even harder. But I had visited Arkansas kind of on a whim, and I just kept comparing everything to Arkansas. So I happened to visit in the fall during football season, which helped.
Of course
it
does,
was hard to compare anything else, but it was fun. It was exactly what I was looking for, and just the right distance away from Kansas City, where if you need to get home, you can, but you have that little bit of space. But I went and majored in economics and Spanish while I was there. So,
oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was a blast. I absolutely love it, and I love to go back too. It's one of my favorite cities, very closely behind Kansas City.
Yeah, of course. Well, and of course you went to school there, and you have a lot of great memories.
Yeah, I know.
From there,
I know. It's just never the same when you go back as an adult. It's just slightly less fun, but still a beautiful place.
Yeah, right. And for you, what was number 2 school? What was second?
Oh my gosh. Do
you remember?
Fordham in New York was one that was really high on my list, and then University of San Diego, which again are they're both Catholic schools, which coming from a Catholic high school, they I think we're very lenient on their entrance for other Catholic high school grads, because again, I thought those might be some stretch schools that I got in, and but again, it was just such a different environment. I had visited Fordham, and I love New York; it's a fun place to visit, but I'm glad that I didn't go that far. I just worry that I would not have made it back to Kansas City, and now I just can't imagine my life not living here.
Fordham sits in that little oasis in the Bronx, right? Just it's like surrounded by fences and gates and everything else, which would have made me a little bit nervous.
City. Oh my gosh, my dad was so nervous. He was, I think, trying to talk me into going just about anywhere else. They were excited to have New York to come visit, but they did not want me going.
Their daughter going someplace like that. Yeah, because it's a tough spot.
Oh yeah,
right there. Campus is beautiful.
Oh, absolutely.
It is
but
like
the surrounding
this.
area is not.
No, it's not. not very pleasant. No. But you go to University of Arkansas, economics and Spanish. Your original thoughts as you're getting out of school and now you have to go be a real adult and find something to do. What were your thoughts?
Well, I graduated a semester early, which was...
Well, that's never a good idea.
No, it was a horrible idea. Even at the time, I thought this is a horrible idea. But all of my friends were still in school. So I was the first to really do the interview process and things like that. And I'm the oldest of my family. So the first in my family to go through that too. So it was just a totally new experience. And I interviewed with Cerner, probably like everybody else from Kansas City or looking to move to Kansas City. And I just kind of thought that was going to be my back burner. Kansas City will always be there. I'll go back eventually. But I ended up loving it. And I came back to visit. They had me come in and do kind of this, almost see Kansas City from a tourist's perspective. And I fell in love. We stayed downtown and things had changed so much in just, 3 years since I had lived there full time. And it was just amazing. So I accepted that offer and started, I graduated December, started the first week of January. Wow. And then I've been here ever since.
Wow. That's good. So the Cerner experience then, you go through that entire thing, and then what are your thoughts as you're moving through with Cerner?
Yeah, I was traveling quite a bit, and that was, coming back to Kansas City and seeing that it was so different than it was when I left. It was hard to want to travel. In the initial interview process, I thought this will be great. I can still have my ties to Kansas City, but I'll be able to see everywhere else that I was interested in. But the longer that I was away, I felt like I was just missing out on things happening here. So I quickly moved into a role in recruiting there, which is still what I do to this day. I ended up recruiting there for a couple of years and then moving into agency recruiting. And a few years ago, started my own recruiting agency as well. So without Cerner and without moving back to Kansas City, I think I would have been on a total other trajectory than what I am now. And I just love what I do. So it's just kind of amazing. I'm always fascinated by people's careers and how one decision, kind of sparked this fire that brought them to what they do and what they love.
Right. And so your site is local,
Yeah.
lo.kc.al,
Yep, exactly.
which I think is that's terrific
you.
use of, Kansas City and exactly, okay, it's local, but where? Oh, it's right in the middle.
Yep.
It's
Oh my gosh. And
KC.
people always will pronounce it the craziest ways, but once they see it, they can't really forget it that it's local.
Right.
Just with KC in the middle of it. Yeah.
So how much had Kansas City changed from the time you went to college to the time you got out 4 years later?
I mean, it was just crazy. It was, so from 2011 to 2015, give or take, I don't know, I wasn't here, so I wasn't watching it happen, but something just sparked in Kansas City, especially downtown, which was dead when I left. It was open for business, but not anything that you would go to at night. I can't remember exactly when Power and Light was built, but I think that had a big impact on Kansas City just as a destination and the surrounding areas too. But I mean, it was night and day. I had grown up in Brookside, so I knew little pocket areas that I loved. But coming back, especially before all of my friends had moved back, I really challenged myself to try new places and explore areas that I'd never been before. So it's hard to say if those areas were as exciting as they were and I just was missing it because I was in my 18-year-old bubble, or if they really exploded like I feel like they did over those 4 years.
Right. And you sort of leave, I don't want to say as a child.
Right, but yes.
But you really leave as a child, you come back as an adult, or at least starting to get to that point. Some of us don't get to adulthood until we're like 50.
I know.
Okay, but some get there in their 20s, So, and for you to then start right away with Cerner, serious company, doing serious business, and then going out and founding your own recruiting firm.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about the recruiting firm, and you can give a little shout out and the whole thing for that.
Oh, absolutely.
It's sort of a boutique.
Yeah, yep. It's a small recruiting firm. I will contract out with different recruiters if I have an influx of work, but we do primarily management, accounting, and construction, some administrative too. It's called MAC Industries, MAC for the skill sets that we recruit, but also for McLiney, my last name. But we work with companies in Kansas City and really beyond. A lot of our clients, for whatever reason, are in Florida and Oklahoma. They're just two kind of hotbeds for construction lately, so that's been a big push. But really anything on the management side of construction is what we specialize in more than anything else. Being headquartered in Kansas City, I always take it as, especially this time of year, mailing out holiday gifts, I like to spread Kansas City with people that don't live here. So our clients that are outside of Kansas City especially get, a gift box full of all my favorite things from Kansas City, and it's kind of like Kansas City propaganda, but it is just my way of introducing Kansas City to people who might not have a huge, knowledge base of it or a different conception. And, owning a small local business here just drives local even more because I want to help support other small businesses however I can. Typically, it's on the food or alcohol or event space on my Instagram page, but it ties in a way I never really expected them to tie in together.
It's interesting. We've had Cliff Illigan here.
Oh, yeah.
And, of course, he founded Cerner. As they sat around, the three of them, Neil Patterson and Paul Gorp, and they sitting around a picnic bench in Luce Park, scribbling on paper, and all of a sudden it's this $7-8 billion industry, with 50,000 employees worldwide. But he talked about the fact when they first started, they needed, people here that a lot of the colleges around here, they don't specialize in the kind of people they needed to do all the computer work and all that sort of stuff that you find in Silicon Valley and on the East Coast in Austin, Texas. So they had to go out and they had to, recruit these people and bring them in here and show them what Kansas City was all about. And that's what you do now as far as he would have loved to have had.
And, I probably learned it at Cerner. Just thinking about the recruiting piece, that was a huge aspect where, especially for the higher skill sets or the more seasoned people that we were recruiting, they're coming from places like that or maybe moving their entire family. So we have to show them all of the aspects of Kansas City that they would love and really tailor it to them. But I've never put that connection together. I guarantee that is where I even got this idea in the first place, was just to show people who are maybe in Kansas City but don't explore much, or out of town people that might be visiting, that there is so much more here than what you expect.
Yeah, right. And the thing for you is then all of a sudden you set up a situation where you're trying to recruit people to Kansas City,
Oh,
obviously.
yeah.
So when was the progression of, and I'm not sure how long influencing has been around. It's probably been around a lot longer than this
I'm
old
sure
guy
it's
knows.
been around longer than even I know.
But when did you think about, you know what, this might be a way to help recruiting the people that I need to get in for my businesses and my clients to get them in here to Kansas City to really have a better thought of somebody from the East Coast,
Right.
okay? I know from my friends, because I'm an East Coast guy,
yeah.
right? They go, why in God's name are you still in Kansas City? You still have horses running around? I said, no, we don't. The streets are all paved.
Right. Newly paved, but paved.
Everything is fine, okay? We do have some potholes, but it's
Right.
okay. But they have such this misconception of Kansas City until, like you said recently, when you got out of school, 2015, the Royals have just won the World Series.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, now Patrick Mahomes is going to come on the scene shortly after that. Then you end up getting the draft here. The World Cup's coming in 2026.
It is just
and now all of a
amazing.
sudden people are going, holy God.
I know.
And especially the draft for me, my friends back east are going, wow, that city just looked fantastic that weekend.
You're like,
It was
I've been
great.
telling you for years
Yes,
how great
I've
it
been
is.
trying to tell you. I should have been a blogger.
Yep,
I should have been an influencer a long time ago, but you stole it from me.
Yeah, I know.
So talk a little bit about that transition and how that came about.
Yeah. When I first moved here, like I said, I was alone. I had some older friends that were back here, or, obviously I'm from a big family, so I had people to see, but I felt like I just didn't know what was going on here. So originally it started off as kind of a newsletter or events calendar, and that was very, very short-lived. It was just going to be kind of a one-stop shop to see whatever might be going on. But I realized there's quite a bit going on in Kansas City, so not very sustainable. And it quickly morphed into more one-on-one interviews with small business owners or artists or whoever it was. And then I would post a blog about that and kind of make an Instagram post associated with it. Instagram was always the secondary piece in the beginning. And, I would go in waves where work would be busier and I'm kind of neglecting local, or work is slow and I can really, do a ton of stuff with it. But really, probably with COVID, I had to get very creative on how you can't go anywhere. So how posts looked and how you can help promote small businesses, especially when so many were closing, but without really leaving your house. So the blog kind of took a backseat. Face-to-face interviews were not possible at that point. And Instagram was really the place where people were spending, for good or bad, people were spending a ton of time just scrolling mindlessly when they were stuck in their houses. So
because they were mindless.
Oh my gosh, it really. The things that I think about that I did during COVID. I mean, I was baking bread from scratch, and I don't think I've ever baked bread before or since. So, but anyway, I was doing things like places to get takeout or places that are open for to-go cocktails or whatever it was. And I think people were really looking for more of a visual, where they're already looking for information, but a visual, something that still seems fun instead of just news. So then really that's probably the shift when the blog is kind of a backseat now. That's just something, if I have a lot to say on a topic or an interview or anything like that, I'll write a blog post about it. But typically I'll just make an Instagram reel with all of the information, and that's where people are getting most of it anyway. TikTok feels like the Wild West for me. I'm trying to post more on there, but that is just a whole nother world. So it's mostly Instagram posts from this point.
Yeah, right.
Forward.
And I think TikTok has a bad rep anyway because of where it's developed. China is not on the top of our list of friends. So I think TikTok takes a beating there. Insta is where it's at. I said Insta.
I love it.
I said Insta. But I think that is where it's at. And I've seen so many of your posts on Insta. Where'd you learn how was the process of shooting and editing? How did that go for you?
It has been a huge learning curve. It used to just be photos on Instagram. It was just pictures. And even that was a learning curve to figure out how to take a good picture at all.
Sure.
But then when Reels became the thing, all of a sudden you have to become your own videographer and edit in the app and do all these things you've never done before. And I had no training whatsoever in that. So if you scroll back far enough, you will see some of my first videos that are just, they're tragic. They're very hard to watch, but it's just been a learning process. And, Kansas City has such a great community of people that do this, who create content for businesses or who are influencers or whatever it may be, that are willing to share, inside scoop or resources or whatever it might be that they've learned through trial and error. I took my aunt recently to an event with a lot of influencers there, and afterwards, all she kept saying is, "These people are so nice. I expected everyone to be so petty and mean."
Yeah, right, or
It's
competitive.
just, yeah, and it's
or,
just,
yeah.
it's probably the Kansas City thing where people here are just
Yes.
nicer.
Yeah.
But it's so nice to have those resources too. So a lot of it has just been trial and error and learning as I go. But also it's nice to have some resources to fall back on if I have anything crazy. And Instagram's been known for doing crazy things and just kind of making the app work in ways that you don't expect. So it's nice to have people, but it's also definitely been just trial and error. I'm sure one day there will be a course in school you can take to learn all of this. There probably already is.
In there now.
Yeah, there probably already is. But, when I went to school 10 years ago, that just was not the case.
Oh, so, okay. So when you first started it, was it a lot of food, restaurants, bars, pop-ups, all these things that are going?
Anything.
Was that it?
Yeah, and I heard somebody say years ago that Kansas City doesn't have the beach or mountains, but they have food. And so that has just stuck in my head since. I cannot remember who said it. I wish I could. I would call them and thank them for giving me that line. But I think it's really true. I mean, the things that we have opening up most often are restaurants or new bar concepts or really whatever it might be in the food space. And sometimes there are events that go along with that, especially pop-up bars. That has been the thing over the last year or so. So sometimes it's event-based, sometimes it's restaurant or bar-based, and sometimes it's, really anything that Kansas Cityans might be interested in across the board.
Yeah. So do you, how do you pick? Do you just go, I can't imagine you being anywhere, number one, without your phone. No one is. Okay. But you doing video wherever you go.
Oh, yeah.
And whatever you do, you always have it right there. It's almost like a professional photographer.
Right.
He's never without his camera and his lens. And now I guess a lot of professional photographers do it on their phones.
Which is just hard to believe, but yes.
Which is crazy. But you just turn around and you're always, it seems to me like you're always thinking you're out there, okay, how can I turn this into an Insta?
Which, sometimes I joke that, like, if I don't have to take pictures or videos of anything, it feels like such a break. Like, I am off the clock. I get to just enjoy my meal and not have to worry about it. But, realistically, it is if I'm going somewhere, it's because I love the place. And it's almost always local or at least somewhat local. So if I can do anything to help promote it, whether that's, something as big as making that whole, full production Instagram reel or just a few stories, I always want to do it. So if it's a place I love, I'm happy to grab a couple pictures, but I do try to have a balancing act. If I'm there, if the restaurants ask me to come take videos of their new menu, I'm going to record the basically entire thing. But if it's just a place that I'm having, a morning cup of coffee or whatever it is, I'll just take a couple pictures just because I love the place, and then I can put it away and focus on whatever it is that I was wanting to do there. Okay,
so an influencer to be influenced. I know there's probably a line to walk there. You gotta. Okay, like you said, they see you do an Insta on a certain restaurant. It might be, I know you love the taco trail. And, we'll talk about a lot of this other stuff, but maybe you do a taco place, you do a barbecue place. Oh, God, watch out.
I know.
And then, you do all these things, and then you come out and you come back with a review and say, it's a great place to come and go. And then how many do you have fire back at you? Well, why haven't you haven't been here yet?
Yeah.
Do you get a lot of blowback?
All the time. Either people are upset because I didn't pick their favorite place, or they're upset because they didn't like this place that much, or whatever it is. I mean, they could be just upset the way my voice sounds. They are not shy about telling me what they don't like, which I have very thick skin, so it's never going to bother me.
Right.
But it's just, I always think about these people sitting at home on their couch, typing these nasty things, and, it makes me feel bad for them. And then that really, takes the pressure off of me. Like, your life is quite different from mine if you're sitting there and you have all this time to just sit there and write nasty things to people. But
somebody living in somebody's basement.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's how I picture them. And that might not be true. It could be normal people, but I like to picture them like that. But no, for the most part, it is all constructive, especially with Kansas City. I get the vast majority of comments are positive. If they're saying, but this can't be your favorite barbecue place, you haven't tried X, Y, and Z. A lot of times it is just a suggestion. Go out and try it, and
because you enjoyed it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And it is barbecue, especially, is very polarizing for people. Nobody's going to have the same answer as anybody else. So with posts like that, I just have to know that there's going to be some controversy. But if all the controversy I get is, hey, this barbecue place is better, then it's fine with me.
Well, here's the way I always look at it, okay? And I've been, emailed many times.
Oh, I'm sure.
When I was on TV about many things I've said.
Yeah.
But the deal is, if they're commenting on it, they've watched it.
Oh, yeah, that's what I
okay,
was
that's
saying.
the way I look
you
at
watched it,
and if
you
they
engaged
continue, And
Oh,
the
yeah.
next thing, the
Good for
same
ratings.
person,
Yep.
yeah, that you know they are
Yeah.
checking you out.
Yeah, and it's it's one of those things. If that's the highlight of their day is commenting something, you know what? So be it.
Yeah.
I miss a lot of the comments anyway, especially if it's a post that some of them it's hard to predict what will go viral or what will really resonate with people, and some of them the comments just get so out of hand I don't even see them anymore. So
Right.
a lot of times I'll have people fighting amongst themselves in my comments. Like one team will be defending me and the other will be saying whatever, and I just let them work it out, and I go about my business.
So when you first started,
Mm-hmm.
how did you see this grow? How did you see your Instagram following grow
Yeah,
from the original spot?
That's a great question. I had no idea. I mean, when I first started, influencers were a thing, but it was like Kim Kardashian level. It would be basically celebrities who had
Have
an Instagram
12
platform.
million followers.
Yes, exactly. So it just wasn't the everyday person becoming, any type of influencer. So it was just uncharted waters for me and for a few other people that started it around that time too. And I mean, I was just happy if I got to go into a restaurant and introduce myself and meet the owner unofficially, just so I could write about it on my blog and just have something to say. But I had no idea that it would go in the trajectory that it has. And I will say, I've probably been doing it about 5 years. For the first 3 years, it was, just slow, steady increase in followers. But like I said, since I started doing Instagram Reels and those videos, it has just, blown up. I think last time I checked, it's over 40,000. I can't remember the exact number, but
over
it's just
41. I think we just checked this morning.
It is just crazy how it has done. I mean, really over the last year, it has just exploded, which is very fun. But it also opens me up to even more people that have a lot to say, whether that's good or bad.
Yeah,
but
right.
again, it's kind of like you said earlier, if they're writing me about it, then they're watching it, and
Yeah.
I don't care.
Okay, so I know you do a lot of bars, restaurants,
Yeah.
pop-up bars, and all that around the food.
Yeah.
Like you said, we don't have mountains, we don't have beach.
Yep.
We do have great restaurants. How much do you do on places like Union Station
Yeah.
or the World War I Museum or the Miniature Museum or, Nelson Atkins or,
Right, and I
places
love
like
to do
that?
places. I feel like usually when I do a place, I'll kind of make a pseudo itinerary around it. So for Union Station, I'll say go here in the morning, grab a cup of coffee at Parisi, and then go have lunch somewhere nearby, and kind of make the video about more than just Union Station. I found that if I love the history of places, but not everybody does.
Right.
Some people couldn't care less. So if I'm spending too much time talking about the history, people, tune out.
You lose them, especially your followers who are looking for a certain thing.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah.
So especially this time of year, people have family in town and they want to fill an entire day with them. So to come up with, an itinerary of what I would do to show not only great restaurants and bars, but also some of Kansas City's historic places, that typically goes over better. But I have definitely done features on just places, and
Sure.
like I said, I love to visit the World War I Museum and the Miniature Museum and Nelson and really everything that we have. I just think nobody really knows that Kansas City is going to have this amazing art scene or the history until they go experience it for themselves. So on my list in 2024 is to just bite the bullet and make some more historical-based content on places like Union Station specifically. And just kind of, if people are interested, great. If not, they can wait for the next video that's about the restaurant that they should try next.
And then you also are tying in, you could go, if you're Union Station, go to Pier Ponce
exactly.
or whatever and just do a whole thing.
Oh, yeah.
And
Spend
there's
a day
food
at Union
and drink
Station.
there
Yep,
as well.
It's easy to do. Yeah. And tons of activities there, especially if you have kids. And to make an entire day of it, people find that a little bit more appetizing than just, here's the history of Union Station. I might think it's fascinating. But
Right. Okay, so do you remember the first Instagram you ever did on a restaurant?
Oh my gosh, that's a great question. No, I don't, but now I want to go look it up. It would have been, at the time I was living kind of in the South Plaza area, right by the Peanut on Main. So it would have probably been somewhere around there. Like I said, I even to this day typically just take pictures of where I'm already going. But no, now I am so curious what my first post was. Oh, you know what? I do remember. It was Happy Gillis in Columbus Park. The day I decided to launch the blog and Instagram was my birthday that year. So it was kind of a part birthday, part blog celebration.
Yeah.
But gosh, I haven't thought about that in years.
There
but
you
yes,
are. How
Happy
about that?
Gillis. Yeah.
And do you, to ask you what your favorite anything is, would, I don't know if that create tremendous backlash
Oh, yeah.
or whatever, but just to try for you to, like we were talking about, your favorite barbecue place or your favorite taco place or your favorite Italian restaurant, or your favorite, Thai restaurant or whatever. How difficult is that for you to maneuver? Because every year it could change.
Oh, yeah. And it is difficult. I mean, me with favorites across the board, I might say 10 things are my favorite in the same category, just kind of depending on the moment. So I try to associate it with, this is my favorite right now. When you asked me, this is what I think of as my favorite. But people, I'm sure, remember that I said one thing last year and a new thing this year and want to know why. But really, it's there are so many great places in Kansas City. There is no way to pick a clear winner in any category. So it truly is, I think, especially with food, based on where you live, where you're going the most, what becomes your favorite. And with everything being as high quality as it is, there's really not a bad answer in the bunch, especially with barbecue. I mean, I have my favorites, but I say favorites with an S because there are a few different ones that, depending on what I'm doing.
Somebody has good burn-ins.
Yeah.
Somebody has pulled pork. Somebody has beans.
Yeah.
Somebody has mac and cheese.
I know. If only you could take a little bit from them all and kind of make your own.
I think people do too.
I think
sometimes.
So, yeah.
I don't think there's any doubt about that. But as far as that is concerned, I saw recently you did the Behind the Bar.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, my gosh, that was so fun.
Which is a lot of fun. I saw that. If go to Behind the Bar and you'll check it out with Kate McLiney here and McLiney here, and that was great. They made you a cocktail right away, and you just started in, and it was great. But like the back and forth at that time, I think it was there was a lot of Strawberry Hill in there.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Do you is that
That's where
the
I
area?
live. I live in Strawberry Hill,
Okay,
so that is why. Those are always my favorites. Is anything in Strawberry Hill. My grandpa grew up there, and he actually met my grandma while he was bartending at Easy Inn, which is a bar.
Yeah, it's still there.
Yeah,
correct?
It's still there. It closed for a little bit in the middle, and when they reopened, they named it Colonial Club. And I brought my grandparents in, and they were just talking about how they met there, and they said it used to be called Easy Inn because the owner's initials were ESY, so it was ESY Inn, and then the owners changed the name to pay tribute to my grandparents and also to the Bar of the Past. They just had no idea that that's what it was called. So I've been there before the transition and since, and gosh, I just love saying that I'm at Easy Inn the same way that my grandparents were.
Okay.
But it's a blast.
Yeah, I think that's awesome because I don't think people think about Strawberry Hill.
No.
People.
It's a hidden gem. It definitely is. And they have, truly, almost a bar on every street corner. They're all dive bars. They all have a little bit different atmosphere or what they're known for. But you can make, and I know some people do, kind of their own Strawberry Hill bar crawl, and they'll pop around to all these different places. And they have an official one every year that raises money for the neighborhood. But it's just such a fun place. Great food. Like I said, a lot of dive bars, so a lot of dive bar food. But it's just, I love that type of environment. So it's a great place for me to live.
Yeah. How many other hidden gems can you think of around town that a lot of people don't know about, but maybe somebody told you and all of a sudden, okay, I'll go try it because you're on Instagram and it's what you do.
Oh, yeah.
But what are some of the other ones?
People do reach out quite a bit. I love Pendleton Heights, kind of in the same vein as Strawberry Hill, where it's very historic, but it's kind of fallen into disrepair, and now new people are moving in, and that comes with pros and cons, but it's bringing some businesses to the area too. So PH Coffee is one of my favorites in Pendleton Heights. I think it is a hidden gem. They have fun events. Their coffee is great. They have great breakfast food. It's a great place if you work from home to go work there. It's one of my favorite places to do that. But I feel like Strawberry Hill itself is always what I revert to. I try to get outside of Strawberry Hill as much as possible. Just to, give people some variety in my content. I don't want them to think that this is just a Strawberry Hill account. But I also love Armour Road in North Kansas City. I think that's a very fun place to just pop around to a bunch of different places. And anywhere I can make a day of it, I can kind of justify getting out of my bubble and going to try 5 places at once. And, I always have 5 places in mind, and maybe the first or second one I'm having a blast, so I never make it to the others. But it's a good way to get back to that neighborhood too. But I would say lately I'm spending quite a bit of time in North Kansas City on that Armour Road and Pendleton Heights, that PH Coffee Shop. This is a busy time of year for work, so I feel like all of my spots have to be somewhat dual purpose, where I'm going to explore, but also I need to bring my laptop and get some work done.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to have your cell phone going the whole time and doing the whole thing. Yeah.
I know.
And so you grew up on Brookside. So Brookside and Waldo, obviously, I don't think they're really hidden gems because they've been on the radar forever, but they have morphed
Oh, yeah.
as well. They have made a big circle and come around and are back on the top of a lot of people's lists too.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah. And Brookside is one of my favorite neighborhoods too. I mean, I'm biased because that's where I grew up. We were walking to the Brookside shops as kids. It was just such a perfect place to grow up. And I think even now, with all these changes, they've still kept the foundation of what makes Brookside so great. So yeah, I love those shops too. You could spend an entire day exploring Brookside and still need some more time. It's just such a great spot full of, like you said, not necessarily hidden gems. Hidden gems if you live in Johnson County and don't necessarily make it to that side often. But I think the secret's out about Brookside. It's probably been out for a while, but gosh, I just love it there.
What is your favorite food?
Type of food or
Type?
Gosh. I would say my favorite type of food is probably sushi or Thai food, some type of Asian cuisine. But again, that's probably just today. Tomorrow you could ask and it'd probably be barbecue, and the next day it would be burgers. It just kind of depends on what mood I'm in. But right now it has been any type of sushi or poke bowls or Thai food.
Yeah. What about cocktail?
Oh my gosh, I love anything typically vodka based. I love a Tom Collins, vodka Collins. I like to replace the gin with vodka, but really, I feel like lately, and it's probably coming as I'm getting older, I go out and I'm exhausted. So espresso martinis have been kind of a necessity for me now. I like them, but also I need a little kick. I know. It's when I realize, I kind of I'm falling asleep in the chair. I should order something that makes me a little livelier. So I feel like
But still has alcohol in it.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
I'm not ready to quit drinking just yet.
Yes.
But, and then beer is always my favorite. So I feel like if it's, I'll have a few vodka Collins throughout the week, or if I'm going out and doing stuff. But for the most part, I'm always going to revert back to some type of beer, usually Boulevard, but I love Casual Animal in the Crossroads. And really that whole area, there are so many great breweries making actually great beer.
Beer, yeah.
And, I feel like in the past, you kind of sacrifice the quality of beer because you're at the brewery environment and it's a small brewery and you like the environment but not necessarily the product. And we're so lucky that Kansas City is not that way at all. The beer is great. And for somebody like me that wants to sit and try a bunch of them, I love the flights that they offer. I feel like you can really get the most bang for your buck. You're not sitting there trying, 6 full pours.
Absolutely.
You can try them and move on to the next one and do the same there.
Yeah, either that or I love when they give you the little sample cup too. Yep. Yeah, which is great. Yeah,
I know.
That's perfect.
To try it before you commit to the whole
Yes,
glass.
Absolutely. Even the flight sometimes for me.
Oh yeah.
I'm a little bit older, so it just I don't want the hit effect on it.
I agree.
As much,
Sometimes
so
it just depends on the mood. If you're ready to go out all night, a flight is great. But if you're just out and you just want one beer, a flight could be a little much too.
Yeah, right. And it's interesting because now we also have the alcohol. We have, we had Andy Rieger in and with Jay Rieger and them bringing back their whiskeys and bourbons and ryes and everything that they do. His place is another great place to go right next to Knuckleheads.
I know. That is probably my favorite.
That place is awesome.
The combination of the two is so great. To have a show you're going to at Knuckleheads and to be able to go to Rieger and grab a few drinks before is just, especially in the summer, it's just the perfect summer night. And I also think it really impresses people who are not either from Kansas City or, might not get out of their little bubble often to see what Kansas City actually has to offer, all these different pocket neighborhoods. But having Jay Rieger there is just so amazing, especially when you tie it in with the show at Knuckleheads, which is just such a fun place. I love Knuckleheads. It's been too long since I've been to a show there, but it's always a blast.
Yeah, and I love when a train rolls through.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
The train comes right. Yep. You have to wait to get from Knuckleheads to Rieger to Knuckleheads because the train.
And sometimes it'll just stop. I've seen people cross when the train stops on the tracks and people are just dying to get to one or the other, so they just cross over themselves.
Yeah, it's crazy. Okay, the other thing is developing here in Kansas City, which is way new since I've been here for a long period of time. But, Boulevard came on the scene and started doing beer, and then other people started doing it, and then Rieger's the thing for me is wine.
Oh, yeah.
Wine has absolutely exploded. We live right across the street right across the street from Borgmont Winery, which is on 199th and Quivira.
Yeah.
It's right there. Okay, but
amazing.
There are so many on both sides of state line.
There really are.
It's been incredible. Is wine a thing for you?
Oh, yeah, I love wine. I just feel like I usually drink it at home just because, Strawberry Hill is pretty central to Kansas City, and I feel like a lot of the wineries are more, of course, you need area
you
space
need land
to grow, have vineyards, but So I feel like that's something that I have in the past made a priority to go, but it's been a while. We have Amagoni, which is the urban winery in the West Bottoms.
Yes, in the West Bottoms,
which
right?
I love.
I've been there several times.
And it's just a fun spot. And being as close as it is to me, it's just a great
I
scratch that winery
I forget
itch.
who the owner is.
I can't remember either.
I can't
don't know if
remember,
I've
but
ever
I
met them.
remember Sarah and I went in there one time, and we went in, we sat down, and he recognized me from being on
great,
TV,
yeah.
and he came over, gave us a tour of the whole
Oh my
place. It
gosh,
was
that's
just
amazing.
It was he was just he was so he's typical Kansas
Yes,
City.
it really is.
He ended up being your best friend when it was all over.
Yeah,
so
it
it
takes
was
10
great,
minutes
so.
and you're somebody's best friend in
Yes,
Kansas City.
absolutely.
Yeah.
But I loved Indigo. Yeah,
it was so great. Again, it's been too long since I've been there too. It's wineries. I feel like you don't expect much out of them in this area, and then you go to one and you're just blown away. You're like, you're thinking of the Missouri wine of years past.
It's too
just
sweet.
Not the same.
Yes, it's too sweet.
Right. And some people, that's what they like. I think there's that St. James winery in middle of Missouri makes a lot of money on the very sweet wines. But
That's right.
I think people in Kansas City, especially with cocktails changing and becoming a little bit more elevated, people's taste have changed and become more elevated. And wine is one of those things that throughout history, people have always liked good wine, so I don't think many people needed to change on that. But there was kind of a gap in the market where you could get Missouri wine, but it wasn't going to be something that you liked, or you could, order it from somewhere else. So seeing these new wineries pop up has just been so great. And I say new, I mean over the last 10 years or so.
Yes, definitely.
It's just been a fun addition.
Yeah, they're more now down the California model.
Right.
Napa Valley and Sonoma,
Yeah.
which is sort of going down a little bit, and you get places like Oregon and Washington and for climates further north that are now burgeoning as far as wine's concerned. So it's just crazy. So Missouri and Kansas are both more north, okay? And so it's just the season has just become better around here. So
absolutely.
It's crazy,
and it's nice to have good wine that's local.
Yes.
It's just a breath of fresh air.
All right, let me ask you another question. This phenomenon called pop-up bars. When I first heard of pop-ups of any kind, whether it's a boutique or a pop-up bar, I keep thinking it's somebody, they find a little vacant lot next to a gas station, and they throw up a pop-up bar or something, and they start serving drinks.
Right.
Obviously, it's way more sophisticated.
Right. But I'm sure there have been pop-ups like that too that are in some, makeshift space. But Kansas City has just kind of made an art of it. I feel like, especially throughout the holiday season, if your bar does not have a pop-up, you're probably worried that you can't compete with another one.
Right.
So it's been really fun, especially spaces that are a little bit different, to add that feature. We just went to a pop-up at Faulkner Ranch. Jolly is what it's called. It's a Christmas pop-up, and they don't usually have a bar at all. So it was such a fun way for them to, it's almost like a cowboy Christmas while you're there. They have tons of Western elements, and the drinks are great and fun, and then you still get to go, they have the petting zoo there, so they have the animals that you can go visit. It's just kind of a unique pop-up experience, but it's fun to see these spaces embrace the bar side of things, and people love it. If they know they can only go to the bar at Faulkner Ranch for a month, they're going to make reservations and they'll be there.
Yeah. So, and the other thing about pop-up bars is interesting. Some people will say boutiques or clothing stores or smaller clothing stores or retail spaces like that. Smartest thing in the world is to put a pop-up bar.
Oh, yeah.
Because they come in, here's a drink.
Yep, and now they're wanting to buy everything.
And now where's all my stuff over here?
Yes,
Let's go.
It's genius.
Let's go. I know it is. It's really great.
And it's fun. It's combining things that people love. They want to come see whatever it is that your business already does, but this provides a little bit of pressure. Like, we're going to only have this bar side of things for
a certain
amount of time.
It could be a grand reopening. It could be a 5-year anniversary of the place.
Whatever it is.
It's not just a holiday thing.
Right. Oh, yeah. I feel like now it's happening year-round. I do think that might have been born from COVID too. I think people started to get creative about what they could do with a smaller space, and with those limitations of how many people could be inside a space at any given time. Yeah. A pop-up allowed them to open with some parameters where, they can only sell however many tickets to be within the legislation or the rules of Kansas City, and I think people just loved it, probably more than what anyone expected. I had no idea that this was going to be a thing that Kansas City had, and it's been fun. It's fun to visit them all and to just see how creative people are in turning one space into another.
Well, you've been a gem for me here in this podcast. Obviously, there's just something about Kansas City. What is it for you? I think you've given us 40 minutes of exactly what it is about Kansas City, but what is it about this city for you, brought you back from somebody who could have gone out and gone to work anywhere else after you graduated from college, came back home and saw the light that this place really is special. What is it for you?
My family is here, so that's always my default. I always knew that I would end up here eventually, but I just thought it would be much later. I think coming back to Kansas City, you do, and we talked about it earlier, but you get that small town feel with the big city perks where you have concerts that you want to see coming here and events and great bars and restaurants, but you feel like you're just one or two people away from meeting whoever you want. Everybody knows everybody in a good way here. It's not, it's a little less invasive than small towns might be in that way, but to have that community feel, and like we talked about, you can meet somebody and 10 minutes later, they're your best friend because people here are so warm and open, but without sacrificing the amazing parts of a big city that we have too. I just think there are very few places that I've been or that I've heard about that have that perfect blend of small town camaraderie with the big city elements too. And Kansas City really hits that nail on the head.
Well, Kate McLiney, I can't thank you enough for coming in.
Yes,
it's
thank you.
at lo.kc.al. That's at lo.kc.al. She is an influencer. You can tell from her enthusiasm about this city and about the places that she just loves, and this has been fantastic.
Yes, thank you. It's been great.
Thanks for letting me retouch my youth again.
Yes.
Okay, a little bit. Okay,
I'm happy to. Thank you for
Bring
calling
me
me
back
young.
from my, and just keeping me young.
Yes.
Thanks so much.
Oh, well, thank you for having
you
me.
Bet.
It's been great.
Thanks, Kate.